Okay, good afternoon. Uh, yeah, good afternoon. I wanted to go ahead and get some stuff on film and get the page started because I think that the time frame that we're dealing with is limited. It's not it's not that we can't do this in a month or a week. It's just that it's so time sensitive that I mean, if I could be honest about anything, it's that I've never felt 100% comfortable in my body until a few days ago. And because of that, I want to share that experience as part of the mission statement for this podcast. I wanted to do like have the set ready and film it and put music and all that stuff, and all that will come whenever the podcast actually starts. It's going to be a production. It's not going to be just me and a camera. There's going to be more people involved, and those people were sent to be involved. And I wholeheartedly believe that anybody involved with this does not have ill intentions so far, and I'm trying to keep it that way. Um, right now, I'm only directly working with people that I know, and once the network um, kind of grows a little bit, then we can hire some people that will be mental health professionals or building shelters or anything that we can do to give people an option, not just in this country, but like anybody from any walk of life. We're not going to ask any questions, straight ahead. The only thing that I'm not willing to cave on, which is the whole point of the podcast, is a single-minded ideology. But when I was writing this, some people will say that it was not from God because it's not prefaced by "this is a word from God." But if God he manifested this in my brain, because that's how God can work. Um, God doesn't directly reach and control everything. He can manifest an idea in several different people's heads to say, this is your purpose and this is your purpose. And once you find it, you can live knowing that it's not in vain. You're not wasting your time. Um, you're not just punching a clock. It's not an endless cycle of mundane activities that you get 2 weeks of vacation from every year. Um, what I've seen, this is all off the cuff, by the way. I have the mission statement. I'm going to read it, but I had some other stuff that the reason for this is because if I don't have this, then this video will be 2 hours. Nobody will watch it and nobody will understand it because I can't communicate on a single wavelength. It's like once that I haven't had a diagnosis to learn if I have any kind of autism because I feel like I do have some tinge of it. If I don't have that, then I have undiagnosed ADHD. I'm not a mental health professional, so I don't know. The only thing that I was ever diagnosed with was depression, and I've been medicated for depression for 25 years. And um, as time goes on, and the thing that makes this unique and why you would want to even listen to just this guy sitting here talking to you is because everybody has the human experience and it's not all the same. There's no cookie cutter way that we're supposed to learn how to be a human being, how to have compassion and empathy for people that don't want to have any. They're so afraid that what they believe is in any way wrong that they refuse to even talk about it. And that's what I've dealt with my whole life is I have not felt comfortable speaking and thinking for myself because I grew up in an ideology that I bought into at an early age And like I said, this is probably going to not be for everybody, because there are going to be people that hear some of the things that I say just speaking from the heart and say, well, it wasn't in the Bible, so I don't care, you know? And if they want to feel that way, that's fine. I just don't see the point in continuing to hate each other for no real reason. And I don't want to play that game anymore. And I think that there are a lot of people that feel the same way. So the reason that I'm okay with doing this is because I'm a ghost. And if you don't know what that means, it means that I should not be here. Statistically, I should not even be alive right now. And you can paint it any way you want to paint it. You can say that God pulled me off that bridge physically, which is what I believe. When I lost my job, I thought it was over, and I'd wasted 12 years of my life, and I didn't want to start over, so I just wanted to leave and leave my friends and leave my family and be selfish and just say, I'm done with it. If this is the way the world works, I don't want to be in it. And that was like 4 years after I accepted Christ. So if the idea is that Jesus just comes in and fixes everything, then that's not true. There's a walk to it. It's not just a one time thing. You don't go up to an altar and say, I want Jesus in my life, and then you go back to your life and don't change anything. Um, but the other extreme is you don't go outside of the church and tell everybody how to live their life. They are going to find their way to live their life. If you trust in the Lord and you live that life in front of them, then you will reach them. You don't have to demean them. You don't have to call them names. You don't have to not listen to them. You you just have to have a conversation. And if you are bought into a single ideology that you are not willing to budge on, you cannot have a conversation. And that's what's wrong in politics. That's what's wrong in life in general. That we are the human experiment. I'm gonna go over that in this, but this is also a collective. Like, I have some other mentors that are involved. It's not just me. I have consultants. I've asked my pastor. I've asked my family, which, believe it or not, I've actually had breakthroughs with that should have happened 20 years ago. But because I was made to be afraid to question things, that if I step out on my own and have my own ideas, or I have my own path that God wants me to open up, and somebody else comes along and says you can't do that, then I'm listening to man. I'm not listening to God. And you can call that blasphemy. You can call it whatever you want to. I don't really care anymore. Like I said, I'm a ghost. I was dead 13 years ago, and I'm still here because I believe that God pulled me off that bridge. I don't need to question it. So when it really comes down to it, does it matter how this person got help? Did God pull me off that bridge, or did I have my arm on the rail and forgot about it? And I just leaned forward. I didn't actually let myself go. The way that it is in my mind, I was all alone at 5 a.m. and I completely let go. But God said, you don't need to go. You just need to listen. You just need to listen and talk to people and work stuff out. You can't just say that you can't like somebody just because of something that makes them happy if it doesn't hurt anybody else. What does it matter? And I know you're saying that, well, if I don't tell this person that they're wrong, that I have blood on my hands because I'm keeping them out of the kingdom. But if the door is completely shut, you're keeping them out of the kingdom, and you're going to have blood on your hands either way. So what I suggest is that we just start talking to each other, and that that includes everyone, not the church, not the government, Not me. I don't know everything. I don't know anything. Everything that I know is something I was taught. So for me to say that I know without a shadow of a doubt that God pulled me off that bridge, I don't. But I don't have a reason to question it. And the only reason that I had before to question it is now gone. And that's why I can do this, because I'm free. And I'm free to love Jesus the way that I want to love Jesus. And if somebody wants to say that I can't love Jesus that way, then they can say that and go on about their business. And when we get to heaven, Jesus can work it out. And I don't think he's going to hold it over my head that I didn't want to tell gay people they were going to hell. And I just want people to be welcome and to feel comfortable expressing themselves and saying, this is my experience. Just like this isn't going to be soft white underbelly, which I really like, by the way. It's going to be more my personal journey and how I got to this point of total freedom and still love Jesus. And before a couple of days ago, when I actually started having that conversation with people, it felt impossible because I knew that there were going to be people that told me I was wrong, and there's still going to be people that tell me I'm wrong. But the point is, do I want to listen to them or do I want to listen to God? And I feel like I'm listening to God. So I have total peace about what I'm doing. And if you don't have peace about it, then it ain't for you. And that's fine. You can go on and live like I've been living for the last 12 years and just do what I feel like is enough. Like, I've been in church, I've not missed a Sunday, except for maybe if I was on vacation, which I barely go anywhere. Um, my whole life has been dedicated to what can I do to give to somebody else because I don't see any worth in myself. But then when you start talking to people and really listening, not just hearing, you'll see that you are worth everything. God created you for Him, and He didn't create you just to worship Him. He created you to be brilliant, to have world changing ideas, to touch people's lives, to make people smile, make people feel like they're okay when they're not, make people even feel like they're okay to tell you when they're not okay because most of the time they're just not going to do it. So if you have a strict family that's going to say you got to live this way or you're out of this house, and then they go out into the world, once they are done with that point, then they're completely unprepared because not everybody else was raised that way. They're not going to treat you that way. They're going to shun you, or you're going to shun them based on what you were brought up to believe. And it's totally feasible to realize that that's just how life works. You are born into a certain family or into a certain situation, and you learn from the environment that you grow up in. You have some natural God-given talents or instincts, but most of what happens in your life is dictated early on. If you're born into alcoholic or drug abuse or sexual abuse or any kind of unhealthy home environment, and you got a guy across the street that was raised in the very strict, very by the book dogma, you know, kneel and stand and all that, which, if that's what brings you happiness, if that interaction in church is what brings you happiness, I'm not knocking that. I think that's a beautiful thing. I like to see like mass ceremonies and stuff. And I think I found what I was looking for a long time ago. I was just afraid to look at it with human eyes. I was looking at it with my brother's eyes. All of that's going to be discussed. I have to say up front that I was not abused in any necessarily intentional way. My dad was an alcoholic, but he had a trauma from his past that he never addressed until it was way, way into his life. And it was after he had not been able to quit drinking for so long because he couldn't accept what he had done. And we're going to talk about that kind of stuff too, like generational trauma that's passed down through your family until somebody's ready to feel it. And all that stuff's very real. But what I come to you as is a survivor, not a expert that has to tell you how everything that happens with you has to be a certain way, because it's all different. You might have 3 or 4 little quirks about you didn't know about that are totally natural, and then you're afraid to tell anybody about it because it seems weird, right? I don't want to be a weirdo. Yeah, I think weirdos are beautiful. I think that just freedom to be yourself. I don't believe that, you know, acceptance means that you accept everything. You have to ask questions. It's not just a floodgate. We're not going to have drag queen preachers next week. But what I'm saying is, I wouldn't want a woman up there in drag either. Not drag, but you know what I mean? Like with a very attention grabbing outfit on stage telling me about Jesus. I don't want to do that because I'm going to be thinking about how that person looks and not about the message. So there has to be like, let's meet in the middle. And there's where we are losing our battle, is because we're not willing to give anything. We just want our own ideology to be the thing that everybody else follows. And any kind of tyranny or force ideology is incorrect, whether it be religious or gender ideology or anything like that. To be forced on everybody by the government is wrong. And we were headed towards fascism one way or another, and we were just trying to decide which color we were going to wear. And now that there's a party in power that is making so many moves so fast that nobody can really do anything about it, it's making everybody's head spin, and they want to fundamentally change the whole way that the country works when they're actually just doing the same thing that the government's been doing for the last 40 or 50 years. The last person that really wanted things to change was John F. Kennedy, and you saw what happened to him. So um, Trump's not a savior. He's not going to fix everything, and he's not a very good person, in my opinion. Like, just the way that he talks to people and treats people, I can tell that when I interact with somebody. If I know that I'm dealing with a bully or a narcissist, I know, because I've met some and I've been one. I know all the signs and all the traits. So once you become aware to toxic behavior in yourself, you can see it in other people. And the temptation is to go correct somebody else, when really all we want to do is talk about ourselves right now. We're not here to judge anybody. Anyway, if this is what I'm talking about, if I don't stop, I'll just talk for 2 hours and nobody will be watching this. So I'm going to read this. I'm going to try to avoid prepared statements because I feel like that kind of takes some of the genuine feel of everything if I'm just reading something off of paper. But I wrote this right before I literally sat down at the typewriter, typed it up, printed it out, and started recording the video. So the purpose of this podcast is to be the voice of the seemingly voiceless. And I'm not referring to myself as that voice, I'm referring to the community as that voice. To listen to people with a different understanding of the human condition. You might say, well, that doesn't sound right to me. And when that happens, you have 2 options. You can disagree with what was said and challenge it and decide to keep listening and having a conversation, or that can make you hit a wall that you're not willing to budge from, and you can disconnect, and this podcast is not for you. Um, that's going to happen with a lot of people. They're going to get to a point where something is said that they don't agree with, and they will disconnect, and that's a mistake. And it's a mistake that I've made my whole life, that ruined relationships, ruined friendships, ruined family. You know, I spent 8 years basically not having a brother because of a lack of being able to understand each other. And thankfully that was reconciled, but it took a lot. Um, there will be people that don't understand why anyone would want to watch something and listen to me talk. I understand because who am I but a loser in his mom's basement, right? It may be too late for us in this generation to make a difference for us, but we can do it for our kids. I don't even have kids, but I'm talking about the next generation. I think that Gen Alpha is special. We have to meet halfway and concede something, or we're never going to make it anywhere. We're just going to keep going too far this way, 4 years, too far that way, 4 years, and then eventually it'll just tire itself out. Um, most young people haven't bought into one side or the other because maybe they see how stupid it is. Young people are really smart. I don't agree with saying, what were you when you were a kid? And it's just the conversations that I have with these young people. They see right through nonsense. That's what this generation is valuing. They've lived in a phony world for most of their life of filters and influencers and collecting, and which I collect, but like when you got like 45-year-old men buying Pokemon cards and not letting kids buy them to play with them because they have value, then maybe something went wrong somewhere. I don't understand, but um, they spent 2 years away from anyone that they can identify with, and that was COVID. And I believe that hurt them, but it also helped them because they spent time with their family, learning about each other, possibly um, in isolation without as much influence, unless you were just watching the news the whole time. And a lot of us were because we were scared. We didn't know what was happening. Um, they don't want to come back in 10 years and find out that all the friends that they have betrayed them and only pretended to be who they were. And that happens a lot after you graduate from high school. You might keep in touch with two or three people, but all the pomp and circumstance of popularity contests and who's the homecoming king and all that stuff means nothing once you graduate. And you'll realize that once you graduate, but it's kind of a tough hurdle to get over. Um, any relationship built on a foundation of lies will crumble. I've had the same friends for most of my life, despite losing two of them on that one way ticket. So I can't refer to that as that. I have to get used to saying unalive themselves or something like that, because if we want to keep it to where it doesn't have age restrictions or demonetization or anything, we have to play by the rules. My codependency dictated that my train of thought. I asked God for a helpmate, and it was a struggle for me for so long that I was ready to give up everything just to have someone in my life, and I didn't care that we were completely not right for each other. I made my level of service conditional. When somebody says you need therapy, it feels the same way as somebody telling you you need Jesus. It can be taken as an offensive statement, especially when that person probably lives worse than you do. The church that I grew up with has dissolved. It's not the same anymore. There are some smatterings of the same kind of church that I grew up in with, but it's I grew up in two different churches, so there's not a single ideology that I buy into. It's not that I'm going to agree with everybody. And that's the thing. If you got five people around the table that were the only five people on the whole planet, they would not be able to agree on how to divide everything up and who had what. One of them would probably kill a couple of the other ones and have a bigger share when there's so much for everybody to have. It's just human nature to only look out for yourself and not really care about other people. Survival of the fittest, anyway. Um, they want to. Hmm, okay. So when somebody says you need therapy or you need Jesus or something like that, I think you need both sometimes. Um, I think you need Jesus always, but if you find another way to be sane and be happy, I don't object to it. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Um, the same thing is with when you'll pray for somebody that didn't ask you to pray for them. Um, if you don't intend to pray for somebody, uh, because you might forget or you might get busy, the best way to avoid that is to ask somebody, do you mind if I pray with you? If that's what you're led to do. And that person may have a surprising response. They may be okay with that because you're standing there with them and they can hear what you're praying for their life. If you don't know that and somebody just says, I'll pray for you, they could be praying for something that God doesn't want for you and you not know it. And that's kind of a weird way to think of things. Somebody unexpected gave me that, and I was like, it kind of makes sense. Like, would you want somebody that is a complete? I'm not trying to judge anybody, and I'm never going to use names, but I'm saying like they really want you to come to the altar so they can add another number to their count. Anyway, the church should never have been a scary place. I'm not going to leave God out of this because if I believe correctly in my beliefs, then it's impossible for me to leave God out of anything because He has hands in everything. It's okay to be wrong sometimes, but if we don't talk about it, we will never know that we were. Time to stop existing on this plane only the way that they want you to. They want you to be even more afraid to ask questions when this is the very time that it needs to be done. Time is running out. This generation will either crack the code and really come together, leaving out all the nonsense, or they will fall in line and the human experiment will fail again. Because this is round two. I mean, if you believe in the Bible, this has already happened before. God wiped out humanity because it failed him so badly. And then the second time around, I think that he was about ready to do it again. And then he sent his son in his place to come down and talk to us and say, you know, for humanity to survive, you cannot continue to be this way. And this is what we've done with our free will ever since. Um, hmm. Sorry, I lost my place. You might see the top of my head. I'm totally self conscious about that. Um, Once I posed the question, if no, okay, I didn't say that right. I once posed the question, if Jesus can come back and save us all now, why doesn't he? And my answer to that was, what if he's waiting on you? Because if Jesus came back in 1990, my brother would be in hell. Something to think about. If we woke up tomorrow and the internet did not exist, we would be totally lost. And that's the point. That's why I like physical media and books and things like that. That I think that's still a necessary thing. Not everything needs to be captured digitally for the sake of convenience when all that stuff can be altered and nobody can tell what's from what, especially with the way that AI works now. Like, this whole video could have been fake, and it's not because you know me. But anyway, um, if you want to study, get a physical Bible. For all we know, they posted a fake Bible, and since most Christians have never actually read it, they don't know the difference, myself included. I haven't read the whole Bible front to back, so somebody might, well, there's your problem. You haven't read it. But anyway, I want to study. It's just the way that my brain focuses on things. It's hard for me to apply myself to that task. Reading is very mundane to me, and just it's like a task almost to get through something. Whereas a movie, it doesn't mean I'm stupid. It just means that if I can see something manifested in front of me instead of having to completely use my imagination, I can take somebody else's vision of what it was supposed to be and then still, through my eyes and my own brain, interpret it the way that it was supposed to touch me. I'm not here to debate theology because I know I'm going to have at least one alcoholic that thinks turning water into wine means that they can get drunk whenever they want to. The only reason that they're afraid of you thinking for yourself is because it's one less cog to keep their machine running. What I've seen lately is that if we just decide not to keep playing the game that they want us to play, it will bring the whole ideology system down of the single ideology, single mindedness. Someone will hear I'm more leaning towards pro choice than pro life and say that I'm not a Christian to have that belief. And I can understand why you would not think that I would be a Christian if I was pro life. I mean, pro choice. But I don't think that being pro choice makes you anti life. I think it means that there's common sense involved, not just your personal conviction. Um, I expect that. That's fine. I'm going to have several people tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. Um, if a woman is going to get an abortion, it's after a long period of physical and spiritual battle, and no part of her will do it haphazardly. It's not that people are just going and getting abortions willy nilly, but we've gotten to the point where a miscarriage can be a manslaughter charge because you didn't do everything that you could to bring that baby into life, and they treat that as an abortion. Some places, um, that's where the law is headed, and why people don't understand why the government doesn't need to be really involved in it, because it's going to happen regardless. If there's somebody that is feeling that they don't have a choice but to get rid of their baby, and they don't have anybody to talk to, and they don't have a place to go to get counseling or anything or discuss decision, of course there's going to be evil people that are involved in it that want to coerce people into getting an abortion. I don't see why anybody would want to do that, but there are those kind of people. I believe in that too. But I don't think it's something that somebody ever takes lightly. It's not a form of birth control like people want to think it is. First of all, it's going to wreck her body physically to have the portion of her removed that was the baby. She'll have the same kind of postpartum depression that somebody would have had a miscarriage. And I've known people that have had both. I've known people that have had abortions and people that have had miscarriages, and it's not an easy thing at all. One of the people of my story had an abortion early on in her life, and she was definitely afraid to tell me that because she thought it would disqualify her as someone that I'd be interested in. But what if she hadn't told me? I would have never known. So, what difference does it make? If we sit and talk about something, share something, come to an agreement and say, well, that's why this happened, or why you felt this way, or whatever. No, we just want to yell at each other and not get anything done. And I'm tired of it, and a lot of people are tired of it. I can't cover everything in one sitting. Obviously, this is already longer than I had intended. Um, this is more of a group effort that will have a moderator, myself, than any kind of rule book. I wanted to exclude everything um, that people couldn't agree on, but I think that may be the things that we need to talk about the most after a long period of time. Like when I first had this idea come into my head that I believe God put there, and the reason that all my posts, if you go back even 10 years ago, I put a video up where I was saying that I was living a double life, and I was living a straddling the fence, and I was living in the world and going out and getting drunk and going to church on Sunday. I was tired of doing that, and it is tiring because living two lives sucks. It's like having an affair and you're cheating on one life when you're doing the other life. You can't bring Jesus to the bar with you, and you can't bring the bar buddies to church, is what you feel like you can't do. And I don't agree with that either. I think that you just go where you feel God allows you to be, you know? If I don't feel convicted about it, like I would tell my family, like I go to somewhere or to meet somebody, and I sing karaoke and I sing secular music, and there are people drinking there, and I have fun. Oh no, I had fun. Anyway, um, we already went over the point we were going to go to fascist society. Um, when one ideology is forced on the masses, it's going to fail because we're not all built to accept it exactly the same way. You're going to give a set of rules to 7 billion people that 5 people couldn't follow the same way. I'm not a qualified man of God. I'm kind of a paradox. I'm a free thinking Christian, um, and I want people to exercise God's greatest gift, which is free will. And what we've done with our free will since the beginning of time is fail, um, over and over again. Um, we've just decided to hate one another for no reason. And yeah, there's going to be reasons. There's going to be people that do things to you that you interact with that you never want to see again, or if you see them again, you're going to punch them. Or and I have somebody like that in my life right now that I don't want anything to do with, and I thought about hurting at one time, but I want to help this person now, and there's no other reason for that than to know that I needed help, and that person is struggling with something that I know very well, and I see every bit of everything that I went through in that person, and I also see the good in that person that nobody else sees. And I'm not saying nobody else. There are other people that probably see it. He can't see it. So what we try to do is let them see it. You know that they do have worth. They do have value. There's going to be civil consequences to your actions that you've already done. That's why people can reform in prison. We don't just put people in a box and say, "Okay, see ya." Why people even read the Bible in prison or why they work out in prison if they're not people with life sentences. You're not going anywhere. That's your life now. Why do you even want to live? That's I've never understood that. But then some people can find redemption in prison and that just be their life because they accept the fact that the life that they had before they did things that they're still paying for. There's no like Jesus can forgive you of everything, but the court system's not just going to automatically waive it. Now God can move in that way too. He could give the DA a nudge and say, well, this guy's been in here and he's done this and he hasn't had any real, and he's a nonviolent criminal. Let's go ahead and release him or something like that. You know, people with felonies don't feel like they have a choice but to continue the life that they are living now. I'm getting off track again. Sorry. Um, I was told that I can't believe in a God that would give children cancer. And my reply is God didn't give them cancer. Cancer exists because of the fallacy of man. Everything that we're going through now originated with the original sin, um, if my beliefs are correct. Um, free will is the greatest gift that God ever gave us because otherwise we would just be a bunch of robots. We'd be in paradise, but we really wouldn't have a choice of what we could do, you know. And now we can do anything we want to do, but then he has rules of what you can do. But most of the rules that he wants you to follow are just common sense. If you look at the Ten Commandments, most of it is just stuff that your parents wouldn't want you doing anyway, even if they didn't believe in the Bible. So by teaching you the Ten Commandments, you're teaching them this is something real that you shouldn't live this way. And really, the only thing that I think that people need to learn from the Ten Commandments, even though there's 10 of them, if we just broke it down to one, let's just love your neighbor. And if you do that, are you going to kill your neighbor? Are you going to steal from your neighbor? Are you going to covet the things that your neighbor has? Are you going to tell your neighbor that you have a false god that they need to worship? Are you going to do anything else in the Ten Commandments if you love your neighbor and listen to your neighbor and understand your neighbor and meet your neighbor instead of just shouting at them from across the street? Um, this is round two. Can we start acting right? If you go into a church expecting not to get your toes stepped on, you are mistaken because the barrier to entry is not the same for everybody. I had to explain that. Like homosexuals' path to Christ is not the same as mine because I'm a straight white man and I probably have the easiest path to Christ of anybody in this country at least. I don't really have anybody question me if I just want to go out and be somebody that just goes out preaching on a street corner and just sharing God's love or being like Westboro Baptist and hold up signs that say God hates fags and want to exclude people from any kind of involvement based on how they felt when they were growing up, and they never felt any reason to change it. And they're not obsessed with it. You are. Um, what I'd like to happen, even though toes get stepped on in his church, is I'd like for the church to not come out and step on your toes outside. And with that being said, the podcast is here to allow me to tell my story, but also to allow a lot of other people to tell their stories in an honest and open way. The ones that will feel comfortable doing so are already coming forward, and the ones that aren't comfortable will likely hear the same experience they're having from somebody else that will be sitting across from me, usually one or two people. There's so many topics that I've been taking notes for a month and a half, and the amount of notes that I have is ridiculous. I can't film all this stuff at once and upload it, and I can't expect everybody to watch a bunch of 30-minute videos when they have jobs, but they probably watch a sitcom or something that they can replace that with if they want to listen to me. Um, and it's going to be an open thing. It's not just tied to me. I'd like creative control solely so that somebody is steering the ship. Like when the pastor is up in there in the pulpit preaching, I don't go up and grab the microphone if I disagree with him and say, hang on, let me add my 2 cents," because I'm not the qualified man of God. The man in the pulpit is. If I want to question him, I can go to him directly, and he can go to God directly. I can go to God directly, ever how you want to handle something. And if you have peace in it, why do you have to keep asking other people? Are you asking them to know if you're right or not, or you just want them to agree with you? Because if you're just wanting people to agree with you, you'll find that no matter where you go. So you might as well just share how you feel, and then we can discuss it. And there's no yelling, there's no bigotry, there's no anything unnecessary. It's just people appreciating that they're experiencing the human condition in a different way than somebody else. They're not going through the same things. And when you see somebody else that are going through those things, and you look at your life and you look at their life, and you see, I can help this person in this way. I can pray for them, but if I have a means to meet a need, God may have already given me a reason to help them, instead of just saying I'll pray for them, or being conditional and saying that you got to turn away from everything that you've ever believed in, or I'm not going to help you. That's not why this is. That's not why it's the church. That's what I want the church to be. I want the church to go back to being the place that you are welcome. You feel safe. You feel like everybody there wants the same thing for you, and that's for you to experience God's love and have freedom. And that's all I want for you. So if you'd like to join us on this journey, um, I'll probably redo this because this was a spur of the moment thing. It wasn't really spur of the moment. It's just that I've been trying to get this set together, and the people that are willing to uh, dedicate their time to setting this up and it not costing me anything up front is the reason why I also believe in it, because this painting here was painted by one of my best friends in high school that I'm still friends with, because she's still friends with the four of her friends that were a clique in high school. They're all still friends. They all have their own lives, but they're always there for each other. And that's such a beautiful thing. And it's priceless if you have it. Don't ever give that up. But she painted this, and it was an abstract piece, and it was one of the first pieces that she did. And she repurposed it because I was given the thought that hurt people. And the reason that is because if you don't fix what's wrong with you, you're gonna push it on somebody else. If you're bullied at home, you're gonna go to school and bully another kid. If you're if you're nice to people, it may resonate, with other people. Unless somebody just wants to be a complete stick in the mud and just say, y'all are having too much fun over here. It's going to be fun too. We're going to have talks about things that are funny, like I'll do movie reviews. That's another thing. It's like all these things that happen to be passions of mine already that can be put into this project along with the people that are already in my life that God put there for these purposes that He's bringing together. Um, it's going to be something really special. And if it's 500 people, if it's 5 million people, I'm going to do it. And if one person finds themselves after I found myself after 45 years, um, and I found what I feel to be true peace and true happiness, even with everything else that's going on in the world that feels like it's falling apart. That's what I want for you. I just want you to find yourself and not let anybody else. If you're not hurting anybody, if you're not doing anything that's blatantly, obviously evil, then, you know, I'm not going to advocate for somebody, I don't like this person. I'm going to go cut them because I don't feel good. But anyway, uh, there are people that think Thanos was not a villain because his meaning was beautiful, that he knew that the resources of an overpopulated planet would be harder to maintain than half the population. The problem is that he didn't care about the half that got wiped out. And I think maybe that's who I'm here for. The people that the church can't reach because they have these constraints that are partly God and partly social construct. So we can start here, but I do want to tell you this, that the church that I still attend was my brother's church. It's called the Refuge, and the reason that it's called that is because the vision that he had for it was a place where everybody was welcome. And I'm not saying that it's not that now. I just know that that was his vision, and I think that my vision, in a way, is just continuing his vision beyond the walls of the church. And we want to reach people. We want to help people. There are people out there that have the means to help other people. They just don't know how. And there are people out there that need help, but they don't know who to ask. And what we want to do is get those two people together and just give somebody a chance, you know, a chance to be themselves and be happy, because I'm happy. I've never been happier in my life. And I hope that you continue on this journey with me. Thank you for your time.